Can you imagine it right in the heart of some of the richest nations on Earth, with towering skyscrapers, luxurious malls, and trillion-dollar economies? There are Filipinos sleeping on the streets homeless, unnoticed and uncared for. What happened to the dream of going abroad to change your life? How is it that under the dazzling lights of New York, Tokyo, or London, some of our fellow kababayans quietly pick leftover bread from trash bins just to survive? In today's video, we're diving into 10 of the world's wealthiest countries, places that should have been a paradise for migrants, but are now home to Filipinos living without a roof over their heads. Well, reveal statistics. Few people talk about real stories that will send chills down your spine, and a hidden truth behind the overseas dream that not everyone dares to tell. If you care about the lives of Filipinos abroad, the dark side of migration, and the price people pay chasing a better future, hit that subscribe button now. Because what you're about to see might change the way you think about going abroad to earn more money. Let's begin. Number 10, Qatar. As of 2024, around 250,000 Filipinos are living and working in Qatar. Most of them are employed in construction, domestic work, or security services. But according to various community support organizations, it's estimated that over 1,000 Filipinos in this oil-rich Middle Eastern nation are currently experiencing temporary or long-term homelessness. Liza, 38, from Iloilo, used to work as a housemaid for a family in Doha. After months of not being paid properly and having her passport withheld, she decided to escape. But once she left her employer's house, she had no documents, no place to go, and no one to turn to. I had to sleep under the awning of Souk Waqif night market for nearly 2 weeks, living off leftover bread. She recalled, her voice trembling. Lisa's case is not unique. After the 2022 World Cup, many construction companies laid off workers, causing thousands of Filipinos to lose their jobs, and along with that, their work visas. Suddenly, they couldn't stay legally and didn't have enough money to fly home. Many ended up packed into tiny rental rooms, barely 15 square meters in size, with no air conditioning, enduring desert temperatures over 45 degrees. Celsius. Qatar is a wealthy nation, no doubt. But the wealth of a country doesn't guarantee safety for everyone. And if you're dreaming of heading to the Middle East, remember the monthly salary figures may sound tempting. But without careful preparation, you could become invisible in a land glittering with gold. Up next, we head to a modern and disciplined country, yet it's also a place where some Filipinos face heavy depression from the pressure to fit in. Don't miss the next part. Number 9, Japan. Japan, one of the most disciplined and civilized countries in the world, clean streets, trains that arrive to the second, and people who are always polite and respectful. For many Filipinos, Japan is the ideal society, orderly, stable, and a place where hard work pays off. Currently, around 300,000 Filipinos live in Japan, mostly under the technical intern training program, working in construction, caregiving, agriculture, and service industries. But not everyone can keep up with that perfect pace of life, according to the Solidarity Network, with migrants. Japan SMJ, it's estimated that 4,000 to 5,000 Filipinos in Japan are homeless or living in highly unstable conditions, a troubling number that rarely makes it to the media. The main reason is the sudden end of employment contracts without renewal or unexpected layoffs. When Filipinos lose their jobs, they also lose their residency status, forcing them to live underground, without documents, and without access to public support. Take the story of Eric, 44 years old. He was once an electrical intern in Tokyo. After his company went bankrupt, his visa expired, and he couldn't find new work with no shelter. Eric spent nearly a month living in a 24-hour internet cafe before moving to sleep at a small train station in the suburbs. Each morning, he'd wake up early to avoid attention, walking almost 3 kilometers to find a convenience store with discounted bread. In Japan, not everyone can live on time and by the rules forever. And once you slip from that system, you start to drift quietly, invisibly, and alone. Number 8, Germany. On Berlin's subway trains or bus stops in Frankfurt, it's no longer unusual to see Filipinos heading to their early shifts, dressed in medical uniforms or restaurant gear. They're hardworking, punctual, and known for being reliable workers. Germany might not be as popular a destination as the US or Canada, but many Filipinos have chosen to build their future here, especially through nursing programs and vocational training. Today, around 75,000 Filipinos live in Germany, most working in healthcare and elderly care sectors. However, according to social organizations in Hamburg and Munich, nearly 2,000 Filipinos are currently homeless or living in unstable housing conditions. The main cause is job loss, expired visas, or failing to meet strict housing requirements. Unlike in many Asian countries, the rental system in Germany is very strict. You need a stable employment contract, a clear credit history, and a deposit equivalent to 2 or 3 months' salary, things not everyone is prepared for. Ronald, 36, was a nurse at a nursing home in Berlin. When the facility closed due to funding issues, he was given less than 2 weeks' notice. Without income, his lease was terminated. He first shared a room with 4 others, but later had to sleep in an old warehouse owned by friends. "I never thought things could fall apart so quickly in a civilized country like Germany," he said. "In a society that runs on documents and legal procedures, all it takes is missing one stamp and you're pushed out of the system." Number 7. South Korea. At night, Seoul becomes surprisingly quiet. Neon lights still blink around Myeongdong and trains continue to run on time. But behind the bustling restaurants and dazzling malls, shadowy figures hide in the dark. Not locals, not tourists, but Filipinos, who once arrived with one strong belief that hard work alone could change their lives. There are about 70,000 Filipinos living in South Korea today, many working in factories, restaurants, construction, or as domestic helpers. But according to data from Migrant Center Korea, around 2,500 Filipinos are either homeless or undocumented, unable to legally rent housing or access public support. Armin, 34, is one of them. He worked in an electronics factory in Incheon. Every day he stood for 10 hours on the production line, sending most of his earnings back home to Cavite. But when the company abruptly went bankrupt, his contract was terminated and his visa couldn't be renewed without a new sponsor. At first, Armin stayed in a storage room at a building guarded by a fellow Filipino. But weeks later, they were told to leave. They ended up living under a bridge near Guro Station, where cold winds howled through the night and the concrete was hard and unforgiving. To stay warm, they burned candles in tin cans and cooked instant noodles using hot water borrowed from a nearby convenience store. "We wake up before dawn to leave the spot," Armin said. "Strangers attract attention here. One phone call and the police can show up in South Korea. Everything follows rules. An expired visa means you lose all rights from housing and phone plans to hospital access. Once you're out of the system, you practically don't exist, and that means no help even in an emergency." Number 6. Singapore. Dennis, a 37-year-old from Pampanga, used to be a welder on a major construction project near Marina Bay, where skyscrapers rise every year. His shift started at 6 a.m. and ended at sunset, his shirt soaked with sweat from the heat, the dust, and the pressure. When the project wrapped up, the company couldn't keep all its foreign workers. Dennis was one of those laid off. Without a new contract, his work visa was set to expire in less than a month. He didn't dare return to the Philippines because of debts owed to the bank, so he stayed illegally unable to find a new job. Dennis slept in an abandoned utility room in the basement of his old work site. During the day, he collected recyclables. At night, he returned to the hidden spot, avoiding the security guards. One night, an unexpected inspection happened. He ran into the darkness, scraping his legs, clinging to a wall, gasping for air, just like how life in Singapore now felt no longer upright. In a country where everything follows procedure, someone like Dennis is simply out of procedure. And because of that, no one is looking for him and no one asks where he went. There are around 250,000 Filipinos currently living and working in Singapore, most employed as domestic workers and in the service sector. It's one of the most stable Filipino communities in Asia. Yet according to charity groups and churches like ACMI Singapore and Home, an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 Filipinos are either temporarily homeless or living illegally. In Singapore, every aspect of life is regulated. Lose your work contract, and you almost lose your right to exist. You can't couch surf, travel freely, or make a single mistake. For many Filipinos, the scariest thing isn't hunger or cold, it's being caught and deported as if they never existed. Number 5. Australia. When people think of Australia, they imagine crystal blue beaches, world-class education, and some of the most livable cities on earth, Sydney, Melbourne. Brisbane, these names are familiar not just to tourists, but to hundreds of thousands of Filipinos making a life there. Currently about 400,000 Filipinos live in Australia. Most are international students, skilled workers, nurses, engineers, or long-term residents. They're drawn by the generous welfare system, attractive wages, and clear paths to permanent residency. But behind the image of a promised land, there's a darker side few people talk about. According to community organizations like Homelessness NSW, between 4,000 and 6,000 Filipinos are currently experiencing homelessness or unstable housing in Australia, especially after the 2023 housing crisis when rent prices in major cities reached record highs. Alvin, 26, came from Davao on a student visa to study hospitality. After graduation, he applied for a short-term work visa. But when he couldn't find a job in his field, his visa became ineligible for renewal, and he was left temporarily unemployed. Unable to afford rent, Alvin and two friends moved into a shared old car. During the day, they took turns doing food deliveries, grab Uber Eats, whatever they could find with a bridging visa. At night, they rotated parking in public lots near parks to sleep. In Australia, it's not about not trying hard enough, it's about not adapting fast enough. Just a few weeks of delay in paperwork, an insufficient deposit, or a job that never comes, and you could fall out of an incredibly tight and unforgiving system. Number 4, Canada. Outside a large supermarket in Vancouver on an early winter morning, a woman sat silently by the sidewalk. Her face looked tired, silver hair slightly tangled in the cold wind, arms wrapped tightly around an old cloth bag. Her name is Teresa, 58 years old. She used to be a nurse at a private hospital in Manila. After her daughter became independent, she decided to work in Canada as a caregiver under a legal employment visa, hoping that a few years of caring for the elderly would help her save up for retirement. She looked after a 92-year-old man in Toronto for 6 years, working quietly, diligently, and never complaining. But when the man passed away, the family suddenly ended the contract. Because her work visa was tied to that job, Teresa instantly fell into a legal gray zone, unable to work, unable to renew her visa, and no longer eligible to rent an apartment. With no sponsor, no relatives in Canada, and not enough money to return home, she drifted between shelters, churches, and sometimes even bus stations during the harsh winter. On snowy days, she wrapped her feet in plastic bags to keep out the cold. Her biggest fear wasn't just hunger or freezing, it was being told to leave without knowing where to go next. Canada is home to nearly 1 million Filipinos, and many believe that as long as you work hard, you'll be fine. But according to immigrant aid centers in Toronto and British Columbia, an estimated 10,000 to 15,000 Filipinos are currently homeless or living in unstable conditions. And in a country known for kindness like Canada, the most heartbreaking reality is this. Some of the kindest people are now living invisibly without a home, without a voice, and without a single complaint. Number 3, United Kingdom. At 3 a.m., while all of London is wrapped in the cold gloom of winter, Maria, 39, from Cebu often wakes up in the middle of a broken dream. In the women's shelter where she currently stays, the faint whistling of wind through the cracks, the dim yellow light, and the quiet breathing of strangers beside her keep her from falling back asleep. Maria used to work night shifts as a nurse at a care home in the suburbs of London. The job was hard, but she felt proud sending money back home for her daughter's education. Then suddenly, the hospital laid off staff due to budget cuts. With no contract and no sponsor, Maria lost her footing. Her savings weren't enough for a new place. So she sent her daughter to stay with a family friend in Leeds while she went to London in search of a shelter for undocumented migrant women. There are about 250,000 Filipinos in the UK, most working in healthcare, care services, and social work. But according to Shelter UK, between 2,500 to 3,000 Filipinos are currently homeless or in unstable housing situations, especially in cities like London and Birmingham, where rent prices have skyrocketed. Social welfare in the UK does exist, but it's not easy to access. People like Mariah who struggle with the language, don't understand the system, and have no local support, often get lost in a maze of documents, strict conditions, and legal jargon. The dream of a stable life in Europe didn't end because they lacked willpower. It ended because of one contract termination letter, one visa denial notice, and no one there to explain what to do next. Number 2, United Arab Emirates, UAE. Ruth, 32, used to work as a receptionist at a luxury spa inside one of Dubai's most prestigious malls. She was smart, quick on her feet, fluent in English and basic Arabic, dressed in polished heels and a spotless uniform. Ruth always greeted customers with a smile, embodying the image Dubai wanted to project: dynamic, flawless, and professional. She once truly believed in Dubai, if you work hard, you'll build your future. And for a while that seemed true. She sent money home regularly and helped her younger sister finish college. Then her dream collapsed fast. The spa owner suddenly sold the business due to debt, and the entire staff was let go without pay. Ruth lost her job and her visa had only 15 days left. She applied to 3 other companies immediately, but each one asked for a visa processing fee, 000 to 5,000 pesos money. Ruth didn't have. Her bank account was nearly empty after rent and remittances. With nowhere to stay, she asked to crash in a tiny apartment in Sharjah where 3 fellow Filipinos were already squatting after their visas expired. Each claimed a corner of the floor, sleeping on cardboard instead of mattresses. The fan didn't cool enough, and the windows stayed shut for fear of being seen. They lived like shadows, leaving early, coming back late. Meals came from restaurant leftovers, courtesy of sympathetic kitchen staff, usually cold rice and reheated meat. The UAE is home to nearly 800,000 Filipinos, most working in service construction and low-skilled labor. But according to Migrant Middle East, an estimated 20,000 to 25,000 Filipinos now live undocumented or in temporary homelessnesses, especially after the pandemic and stricter labor laws. Though the kafala system has been reformed in part, it still leaves foreign workers highly vulnerable. Lose your job and you lose your visa, health insurance, and often the right to legally transfer to another employer. People like Ruth are stuck between 2 painful choices: live in hiding in Dubai or go home empty-handed and ashamed. Number 1, United States. Beneath a concrete overpass near Little Manila in Los Angeles, surrounded by traffic noise and chilly gusts of wind, Tito Randy Fitu, a former caregiver, carefully folded his old uniform shirt. He never imagined he'd one day sleep in a truck, keeping warm with his own breath. Randy used to care for an elderly Italian-American man in San Diego. He worked legally diligently with hopes of eventually getting a green card. But when the man passed away, the contract ended, and so did his visa. With no new sponsor and no company willing to hire, Randy got stuck in that gray zone between legal and undocumented. Now he lives in an old pickup truck parked on a side street. By day, he collects recyclables or does odd jobs through local churches. By night, he bathes at gas stations and eats canned food from charity kitchens. He once said, "I used to think if I just worked hard, things would work out." But America, it's not that simple. The U.S. has around 4 million Filipinos, mostly in California, Hawaii, and New York. But according to organizations like Filipino Advocates for Justice and LA Homeless Outreach, an estimated 40,000 to 60,000 Filipinos are now homeless or housing insecure, the highest number among developed countries. In America, if you lose your job, have no insurance, no relatives, and don't know the system, you can fall out of the loop very fast. Not because you're lazy, but because you simply weren't fast enough. The American dream was never free, and sometimes the very people who gave up their youth chasing that dream are the first ones it leaves behind. You've just traveled through 10 wealthy nations, places many see as paradise, only to discover tens of thousands of Filipinos quietly living without a home. Each story is a reminder. Hard work alone isn't always enough to survive abroad. You often need much, much more. If this video opened your eyes, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Hit like to support meaningful content, and don't forget to subscribe to Bizarre World Adventures for more real stories from real lives around the globe. Thank you for watching until the end. Ingat ka palagi.